Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah. Today we are starting with loops. So before we proceed, can I know what I have covered yesterday? Any one person who is confident that he can tell me, he can sum up what and all was covered yesterday.
Statements.
ऐसे sum up किया तो हो जाएगा. थोड़ा anyone else who can summarize beautifully like what and all we have covered?
Yesterday we have started with a statement. Under statement we have if statement, if else, and switch statement. So if statement we have a conditional operations where we have conditions. If the first case passes, it will go to the next statement. Where switch we have a break keyword and default keyword.
Okay, so I'll just summarize once more. And it is kind of recap so that when we start a new topic before that, again we should brush up, because I understand, all of you are already committed to some of your projects and there you hardly get extra time to, look over all those things. So we covered statements, okay, and there are two major statements that we have covered: if statement and switch, okay, and both are, both are logical, or you say conditional statements, wherein we have a expression, and based on the result of the expression we execute some block of code. Now you also understand how we write something under a particular block, and block is represented by a curly braces, right? Okay, but in operation wise, how if and switch is different is the result of the expression. In if, result of expression is either yes or no, or that means a Boolean result, where it can be either true or false, and based on that we take decision, right? If you want multiple decisions to be taken, you have another if statement followed by this, that is represented by else if. So if the first condition is not fulfilled and you want other logics to be checked, you put in another if. It goes on till, and if you want some default condition to be executed, if none of the above expression is valid, then you use simply else, where there is no condition checked. It is only if the above ifs have failed to be true, else will be executed. Clear? Whereas your switch works little differently, because result of the expression is not a Boolean. Either it can be different data types, right? It can be a string, it can be a Boolean, it can be a string, it can be an integer, float, double, decimal, right? Or you can say up to most of the data types. And we have already seen the example. In that we don't have a code block, but to terminate or to demarcate what is the end of code block, we use break, not default. Default is equivalent to your else condition in if. You use break, so that means the end of the particular case block, okay? And again you have to remember the syntax. Again I will not repeat the syntax. I am assuming you guys have gone through it, or you will be going through it in the weekend, because Monday onwards we will not cover new topics for some time. We will only use practicals. We will utilize our 1 hour for practicals, and I assume everyone is getting your laptops, and I am hoping everybody has already done with their corresponding Git account. You have created it, you have done some basic thing, and you already know how to push your project into Git. Clear? Okay, then now we'll proceed with a new code, or you can say statement, which is more one of the most important thing, if not the most important, that are loops, right? We all know how, you know, our coding works. Basically, our coding works in a sequential manner, and we have already discussed in our first class what program is and why we call something as program, because the execution of the, you know, instruction in the program always works sequentially, right? It only goes in a particular direction, right? But suppose sometime, right, we need to repeat something for finite number or infinite number. For example, I'll tell you, not from the coding, from, you know, this thing. There are few kids whose age is little, you know, more than the rest of you guys. Like Naveen is there and Vatsa is there. Vatsa, in the night you used to see any channel where suddenly the telebrand ad will come? No. That something, no, online purchase things will come in Star and something in the night. Yeah, so homes updated. So you have seen that, right? Yes, you are old enough, I know. Okay, so and it used to repeat. You know, there will be program for half an hour, 1 hour, but the same items and the same kind of offers will repeat after 1 hour or 1.5 hours. Right? Why? Because there is no normal program scheduled after 10 or 11 p.m. because nobody will watch. Not like today's thing where, you know, there is a series of program which will kept going, and telebrands, they have their own separate channels, right? Why we used to do is because we don't have anything scheduled in that point of time. So they used to repeat the same thing till, you know, the schedule begins in the morning again. So understood? Similarly, in our normal day-to-day life also, we need to repeat something purposefully. For that we need tool, or we need some support from programming language. And to support that, our first kind of iterative statement is for. Okay. So why we use for is, again, we're very, you know, very English purpose, like, you know, when we say repeat something for so many times. So for is used just to indicate that we are going to do something till some condition is valid. Okay. Now you can see the syntax: for int I equals 0, I semicolon, I less than 10 semicolon, I plus plus, and then the curly braces. So here, and diagnostics.debug.write I. Okay. Now, and both this statement is, you know, encircled with a curly braces. Now what is this curly braces here? Madhura?
So that line will execute till that condition satisfied.
Yeah. That is a code block, and I don't think so you were present in the last class. So you go through the video, you'll get to know what this is. Okay, so basically for loop will iterate for the instructions written within this code block. Okay, and here system.diagnostics.debug.write is basically a command used when you run the Visual Studio. Okay, when you run the code, you will get a debug window here. Okay, in the below. So basically, it will write it there. Is it clear? Or else I'll show you. System dot debug dot right. Okay, let the name be here. Let me execute it. Just to understand, because you should not have that. Okay, it will not execute. Wait, sorry, this is my mistake. have to put it outside the switch. Is my name shown 2 times? No, right? Where it will show then? You see the Visual Studio, there will be a debug window. I'm not able to, let me pull this thing in my window because my eyes are little weak now. Debug window is here only. Okay, I'm not able to find this here. Like I can see the debug window, but usually what happens now when you run in the debug window, it will write the whatever the text or string we want to write it. Okay, this is what this line does basically. It writes in the debug window. Okay, so where? No, that is different thing. This is like debug window. When you run in debug mode, below this is the debug. You can see here, right? It is debug. So here it should come basically. Okay. Now because we need to continue with for, we'll try to see that. Okay. So now we'll try to understand first that how this whole for loop or this iteration happens. Now, first thing to understand is what will get iterated. Here, what will get repeated? Everybody is nodding your head. You are not telling. Which condition? Condition will get iterated. Why you want to iterate the condition? You need to iterate the
position.
You need to iterate the text, like or whatever you have you are doing in the curly braces. That is the code block. The code block will get iterated till when? Till the expression you see on the above for loop holds, returns true. Okay, so you understood the basics. What will get iterated is the code which is written within this curly braces, right? And then till when? Till the expression written above holds true. In that there are 3 parts in the statement. Okay. This is first part. This part is called initialization. Okay. So what you are doing is you are initializing a variable called I with what value?
0.
Okay. Then comes the expression. this is the expression which needs to be returning true in order to continue the loop, okay, or the iteration. And then third one is, okay, reinitialization. Reinitialization can have increment, decrement, or any other expression logic here. Usually it will be increment or decrement. Sometimes you have a different logic which is governed by expression, so use that. But basically till the expression which is written in the middle holds true, this loop will continue. When it doesn't satisfy the condition, it will break. Now, one basic way to make this loop an infinite loop, what you will do? No, you will make it true. You will make sure it always returns true. For example, in this one, if you write the logic is when I is greater than -1, right? We are starting from 0 and keep counting above, right? It will never exit the loop. Now you will ask the question, why you want an infinite loop, right? Why do you need an infinite loop? At some times you need infinite loop in purpose. For example, your IoT devices, your embedded devices like your watch, when it will stop showing you the time? Till it gets switched off. Otherwise, the program should keep running. Your web server, right? It should keep running. I am not talking about your code in the web server. I am talking about web server itself, which listens to the request. It should keep running. If it stops running, how? If you are trying to open the website, it will not open, right? It should keep running unless there is a manual intervention. Your mobile phone, it will not stop till you try to switch it off. If you don't switch off or the battery doesn't drain, it will keep running. So there are programs which is always running, and that kind of program is in infinite loop. Why? Because the moment all the instructions are over, the program will exit. Like in our program, when we run it, it will wait for the input. Till when? Till we are giving the input. But once we give the input, it will execute all the program and then it will come to a halt. So we can do that as well. Okay. Now, so let's understand this, but first we'll cover the other loops, because starting from for loop is not a wise thing, because the basic loop is while loop. So we'll start with while loop so that you will understand the concept of loops little better, and then we'll come to while and the last for each. Okay. Okay. Can you see while loop? While loop is little bit simpler. While and then expression, and based on the result of the operation, like expression, whether it will continue or break. And one more thing, if suppose there is a certain scenario within the code block of a iteration, you feel that for this condition I need to break the loop. In that situation, there is a command, again the same command, break. Okay. So which will, instead of the above logic, whether if your expression is true, but inside you can break it so that from then onwards the loop will not continue. For example, you are running the loop to find some data. If you encounter the data, then no need to further search for that, because that will be waste of time. Get the data and break from the loop. So that is also a very common practice of loop. So we'll try to write and see. So I'm going to remove all those things. Okay. As of now, because we might need this, I'm just blocking this code and then while. क्या लिखा है? आई नहीं है क्या? Okay. So now we have written a infinite loop. You can say while true. So this loop will never exit. Okay. So this time we have to manually, where is that thing here? Okay. So first we will see how infinite loop works. Okay. Now you can see it's keep going on till we halt it. Okay. Now, but I don't want to write a infinite loop. So how I can modify the same code to serve my purpose? I say inside I've just written a if condition. If I equals 21, we'll break it. So it should count from 10 to 20 and stop. Okay, I think it was waiting somewhere. Can you see up to 20? Okay, but we should not write code something like this. It's just an example how to write an infinite loop. What we will do is we have already defined, we can write here I less than 21. Okay, it will serve the same purpose. So you guys are able to follow this logic? And most of you are already written either JavaScript program or something. So you might be familiar with how we write a loop. Okay. This is the correct way of writing program. Do not use break unnecessarily. Sometimes we use break for some conditions, but 99% of the time the loop will complete it. It will complete it, iteration completely. Now you understood what is while. Now do while is same thing with one modification. You see, is there any difference? No, right? And now I'll show you a difference. For example, what happens if it is 9? Now, what happens? You tell me. The condition will never satisfy, right? So, you should not be able to see anything, right? Because your while condition is failing, logically it should not show anything, but let's see what is the output. Now you see 10. Why? Because this is little different than while loop. In this condition, if suppose you have a block of code and you want to iterate it, but you want to run it at least once, right? And depending upon the other scenario, if it is meeting, then more than once, depending upon till when condition is satisfied. If the condition fails also, it will run at least once. So this is the basic difference between while and do while. Understood?
Any example where I
Any example? For example, I'll tell you a very good example for you. You have seen Jodha Akbar? No. Movie, in that what happens? There is a cousin brother, he conspired to kill Akbar. He finds out, he takes him to, the clan and he throws him down. Say, check करो, मरा कि नहीं मरा. वो जिंदा है, फिर लेके आओ. Right? पहली बार में मर जाता था, second time उसको नहीं फेंकता. But because he didn't die. So that kind of situation where you need to do something at least once. But based on, for example, when you are playing cricket, right? You need to bowl minimum 6 balls. And suppose 5 balls you have bowled. Now you will bowl at least 1 ball. Until unless you bowl a no ball or a wide or a dead ball. You understood? So some kind of scenarios where, see, first of all, while and do while is all extinct. Mostly people don't use it. Mostly. It is only with very specific scenario, very specific problem, you will either use while or do while. I will tell you the problems also with while and do while. See, now you see here, what you are doing is you are creating a variable where? Here. Now because I have not covered this, because we have not actually gone through scope of variable. Now I will just brief it and we will cover this thing when we are covering a scope of variable. Like suppose when you have created a variable int I equal to 10, and then we check the condition in the last, we are checking whether I is greater than, and suppose it satisfies or doesn't satisfy. Code will move forward, right, after this loop. But this I will not go out of memory. Usually, because this will only, the memory for I equal to 10 only will be released when the program ends, right? So this is called memory leak. Whereas you have allocated memory, but after use, this I will not be used after this loop, because we have specifically created this I for this loop, right? We are not using for rest of the program. But the scope, but this variable exists throughout the program. This kind of scenario is called memory leak, right? And if your program or if your where you are deploying your program has a memory constraint, you have a possible memory leak here, because you have created this but you are not using it. That means you are wasting it. Okay, you are holding this memory for the entire duration of program and you are only using it for only a small portion, because now you can't realize because it's only those many line of programs you have written. But suppose if you have 1000 line, and most of you have already working in different projects where you see one class contains 1000 lines of 2000 lines of code. Suppose in the starting only you have declared a I. For the entire life cycle of that particular class, this I will exist, and that is the problem. And we are talking about if only it is used by one user, and we see because this is a class library in the web, this will be used with thousand of people at a time. There not only one person is wasting this memory, other 999 people are also wasting this I memory. So we try not to use while until unless it cannot be solved by any other way. You understood why we should not be using while and do while? Nobody is answering yes or no, at least you understood, right? We should avoid using while and do while, especially while, because memory leak, and because that can be always covered by for loop. Now the syntax of for is for int I equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus, the same basic program what you saw in the example also, right? And we'll say console dot write line, then I write. Okay. Now see, because this is declared within this for loop, the moment for is, the iteration is done, I will be released automatically, using garbage collector. Again, all those things we'll read, understand in details later, but you understand here what we are not doing is, we are not wasting the memory. The scope of I is limited to this for loop only, because if you try to access I here, I equals, see, first of all the IntelliSense is not picking up I, that's why it is thinking that I am trying to write if. I'll try to declare. This I is showing a red, this thing. For example, quickly let me write the same while loop. While okay. You see that? Now if I try to access I here, it will give me an option. That means after the loop also this I exists, right? You can see here when we try to write I, it is giving me error, but here it is not. It means this I is outside the scope of while, so it will exist, okay, way after we have used this I and we don't no longer need it. So for example, if we are writing two for loops, okay, now should I delete it or let it be for time being? Okay, let me block this code for some time because both the I's will conflict. I am not able to see the blocking code where it is. This one?
No, still left. Left.
This one?
No, left.
Okay. Okay. It happens. Okay. So here you see there is no conflict. This I and this I, usually when we are using two variables with the same name, it should give an error, right? But here it is not giving an error. Why? Because this I's scope is within this only. Similarly, this I's scope is within this only. If you run it and see, now you see, first you will be having 0 to 9 and then again 0 to 19. It's showing like that because here when we say incrementing, this is a different I, this is a different I. Only name is same, but these two variables are totally different. And how it is different? Because scope is totally different. Scope in the sense, for example, in this room or in this thing, how many Naveens are there? One. When I say Naveen come here, only he'll come. But because scope is only this much. But when we go in the normal working area and say Naveen, at least two people I know will stand up. Because I didn't say Naveen J or, So, this is scope, right? So, if you are using while, that will happen. Because the entire scope is bigger. Here scope is smaller and this will only exist till the work is happening. Okay? If I go out, then I have to call him Naveen J, right? Otherwise, the people will get confused. The two names with the same people, right? Multiple people with the same name. So here that kind of conflict doesn't happen because the scope of I is only within this curly bracket. Okay? And similarly, this is a different I than this.
If we write same like dual, like mention the I on the top, then use that same I. Still
We can do that. We can do that.
that memory leaks will happen.
Yes, memory leak will happen. I'll show you int j equal to 10. Okay? Here, whatever you are doing, you do it here, we'll say j less than 20. Here again j less than 40 and now can you tell me what is the result? It is little complicated for you, little, not much. So you guys can definitely understand what should be the output. What will be the output of the first loop? One by one. Yes. What is only 10? Okay. Anyone else? What will be the output? First loop. J is last. I'll ask there are three questions. Output of first loop, output of second loop, and then output of like value of J. 10. Okay, second loop.
Second loop 0 to 39.
Okay.
Then j equal to 10.
These guys are not understanding. Let me run. There won't be any output change except the value of J. And I'll explain you how. First let it run. What is the output? Okay. Why it is not breaking? Okay. Wait. Second one we have not changed it to J. Okay. Can you see what is the output for first one? 0 2? Okay. You are in my category. Someone from the front. 0 2? First one is 0 2?
90.
First one is 0 to 9.
First one is 0, 7, 8, 9.
Karthik,
0,
I believe you. You tell me.
0, 7, 8,
Huh?
9, 0.
Say 0 to 9. After that 0 is the second loop. And 0 to again 19. Third one is 40. Now I'll explain you the code. See here what we did. Problem is when I'll ask you guys to read out ABC, you will read out properly. When I ask you to prepare a word out of ABC, then you start faltering. What I did first, understand. This is J equals 10. Now here I is, value of I is, and the scope of I is local. Within this curly braces only. Whereas J is outside this and the scope is till the program ends. Understanding? Now we have initialized I. But now we are not checking I value, J value. J should be less than 20. And initial value of J is 10. Understanding? It is not 0. And we are incrementing J by 1 every iteration. But we are printing I. So I was 0 and we are incrementing by 1 every time. So it will take the same 10 steps how we were taking 0 to 10, like less than 10. Now we are writing less than 20, but now we are counting from 10. So it will always print 0 to 9. 0 to 9 is 10 numbers, okay? So first output you got it as 0 to 9. Now second one, again I is 0. Again the scope of I is within this square braces only. But we are not comparing with I now, with J.
Window open on the result console.
Okay. Okay. Would be needing help in that case.
Can you go back to the program?
Okay. Now, in the first iteration, what happens? J was 10. From 10 to how much we are counting? 20, 19. Okay. At the same time, but we are not printing J, we are printing I. I was 0. Okay. So, you are getting 0 to 9 because that is 10 numbers. Similarly, and in the same duration, this will become 10 to 20, so it will exit. Okay, and you are seeing the same output. In the next one, now what is the value of I again? 0. And this I is different because this I will not exist after this curly braces. Now what is J? Okay. And now we are counting till? And again we are incrementing. So what it should start printing again from I is 0, 0 to Why 19?
Because J is already 20, right?
Yes. No, somebody told J is 10. I was coming back to that. J is not 10 now because scope of J is not limited only within this thing, right? J has incremented, to 20 now, right? Because this program will exit when J becomes 20. Now, and from 20 to 40 is 20 numbers. So that's why you see 0 to 19. And now J has become 40 because when it will become 40, it will exit this loop. So can you see 40 here? We are clear? Should I close this because मुझे देखने में बहुत दिक्कत होता है. Okay.
So you're converting to two strings. So simply
Where? Just for display purpose. If you don't write also, it should automatically convert because it should not create a problem. Previously we used to write, but with C# 3.0 or 4.0, it is automatic now. Because write line takes string, so it will automatically convert integer to string. Okay. This is clear? For loop is clear somewhat?
Yes.
Okay. Now for loop also supports a nesting. You know that, right? So you can put a for loop inside a for loop. Now that means ideally I can cut this thing and put it inside this. Will this give any error or not? Huh?
yeah.
Why it is giving error?
Two eyes.
The scope of I is
Already down.
Yes. So you have to understand scope of I is within the curly braces. That means if you put a for loop, then you cannot put I again. So I'll just remove this, make it J or K or whatever it is. Now, now what will be the output like? Can you tell me? Huh? Can somebody tell me the output of this? To just make your life little easy.
Is there I or
No,
I
this
less than T or
no, this should be J. Print and look at print J.
print element. Console right line ING or I?
Only J.
J.
Ah,
Yeah, what should be the output?
0,
1 person, yes. Naveen, you are telling, yeah.
0 to 9 and 0 to
Okay, done. Anyone else? Anyone else has a different answer?
Print 0, 0, 1.
0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3. Sorry.
Anyone else?
0, 1, 2 will be printed 9 times.
No. Anyone else?
0 to 9, 0 to
1.
You are getting there, but if you are not confident enough, that's why I am always stress basics.
It will print 0 first,
Huh.
later 0, 1, 2, next 1, 0, 1, 2.
Correct.
2.
So this is the actual output that you will see 0, 0, 1, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 2, 0, 1, 2, like that. Can you see that? I am not able to see, so you guys need to tell me whether I am right or wrong. Correct, no? Okay, we don't have much time because I have other things to do. Okay, I'll explain you how it works. In the first iteration, what is the value of I? 0. And it will print it directly, right? And for the next iteration, I is incremented to 1. Okay, but not for this one. But after printing 1, what is the next code? J equal to what is the current value of J? 0. So what will be printed? 0. So you already had a print of 0 first. Now J will print 0. Okay, so you'll write 0 again. Now is the loop over? No. Because J is, for the next iteration, J is 1, but condition is less than 3. So next time it will print 1. Now what is the value of J at the end of this is 2. In the next iteration, J is 2. But is this less than 3? Yes. So it will go again. So it will print 2 this time. Next iteration, J will become 3 and it will exit the loop. At this time, what was the value of I? 1. Now in the next iteration, first line will be printed I. Now, so 1 will be printed. Again it will print 0, 1, 2 because J will start from 0 again. In the next iteration, J value is 2. So it will print 2 and then 0, 0, 1, 2. So you have to think like how processor will run this. So this process is called dry run. So you should run the program on the paper. So you have to start doing that on paper first, that what should be output of this line. If you start doing it, you will train your brain to think how processor is executing the program. And then you can calculate after some time, after some practice, you can predict what should be the output at this line. Clear? Think over it if you have any confusion, because these concepts are very important, very small but very important concepts, because if these things are not clear in your head, right, it is very difficult because you will not be confident. Like Madhura, she was almost there, but because she didn't have the confidence to tell, so you have to at times tell. Okay, now anyway I stopped beating also, right? So another advantage, otherwise I had a small stick here. Wrong answer, 1 stick. So this time you guys got lucky. Okay. So let's move. You guys are noting it? And these are very small programs. So it's more about understanding the concepts than noting and keeping it. And if you are noting it, it is good. After this, if you guys have time, do a dry run. Okay, at least one person note, after that you guys can take it from him. Or else I'll make your guys' life little easy. If you have not noted, I'll put it in the Teams so that we'll save some time. Okay, it is there in Teams also. So let's focus now. The next, so for is clear, and this is the basic structure. It will remain almost this only. Therefore, few more examples that I'll cover before going to for each. Now, suppose we have a list of data. Now, I know you guys have not, read arrays. हो गया. Okay. Now. Okay. Okay. So, can you guys follow the code? What is the logic here?
We using the index, pointer value, we consider that as a array index value and print the.
See, here we have used the length property. This length is little different than length of a string. Here it says length of the collection. Yeah. So here collection is array. Okay, and you want to print everybody's name in one line. Okay. Now a collection can be different because once you go forward right in the coding, we see a lot of different kind of collections. Okay. So I'll just use this thing as a base because we have not read different kind of collections. So we'll not talk much about that. Now can you see here everybody's name? So how this code is working is, now I is 0 and how array is accessed with the index. Okay. So when we say in the first iteration I value of I is 0, that much you know. An array of 0 at the 0th position, whose name is stored? My name, obviously. Okay, I am teaching, so I have the luxury that I can write my name first. So can you see Hemant in the console? Now in the second iteration, value of I is 1. At the first position, whose name is stored? Hers. Okay. One second. Yes. So the second is name of hers name is stored, and you can see hers here. Now in the next iteration, what is the value of I? 2. Value of I is 2. In the second position, name stored is Karthik. Don't get confused. Okay. So at the second position, we have Karthik. Now again, some guys can ask, argue, Karthik is in third position, not in second. But whenever we have a collection, in the first position is 0, 0th position. And I told the logic when I was explaining array a little bit, why we consider 0, because the base address is the same as the first element, right? And then we start adding the same data type, size of same data type again, and so that we can access the next memory location. So that's why 0, 1, 2, 3, and this is followed any collection object you go through in C#. We'll start with first position as 0. Okay. So you see, and then the fourth position it is Naveen, right? That will be represented as 3, right? And because length of array is 4, so and Naveen is visible, is it? See, I don't think so. It should be visible. Visible? Very good. नहीं अपर बाउंड लेगा ना तो उसमें एक कम आता है, so there is something called upper bound. Get upper bound. Here it will come up to it is not coming. It is returning int, right? Int only, right? Dimension. So basically this is one dimensional array. So in this case now his name Naveen will not come. Everybody else will come, only Naveen will not come. It will come, wait. Only Naveen is not there. Okay. Why? It's not like Naveen is not desired. It is like when we get the upper bound, it tells what is the last index of the last element, right? Because sometimes you have to access the last element. So instead of writing I minus 1, or say suppose array dot length minus 1, because length is 4, whereas the item is existing at third position, right?
So if you mention 2 over there, only M1
Which one?
instead of 0. If we
No. 0 is like whether which dimension. It is one dimensional array, two dimensional array, three dimensional array. Because our dimension is only 1, so 0 represents the first dimension. Okay, it doesn't have to do anything with,
from last, it is not taking the.
for example, I will show you. Problem is you don't know array and so many questions, so then it will become a problem. Writing that also is problem. Everything will change accordingly. Now, what should be the output of this?
I see, yes, she
Huh?
Naveen, after that, whatever is there, it will not come.
No. The output will be totally different.
Instead of his name, I should come on.
Yes. Now I'll tell you, only high will come. Okay. Now, suppose if we change this to the old one. I'll show you why it was showing that. Because 0 dimension is your first one. Second dimension is 1. That's why you are seeing high. Now, I'll check when I'm putting length, that means it will navigate the entire array. But now it will not display your names because Here, what it is displaying? I of 1.
Second
So,
high and all this.
Stopped. Okay. I has gone for that too. What and all is showing? High. Because it's going more than 3, it's creating problem. So 1, 2, 3 and 4.
Fourth one is blank.
वो तो हम डाल सकते हैं बट वहाँ नंबर ज़्यादा चला गया ना ये आई इज ट्राइंग टू एक्सेस दिस आई इज 0 ऊपर में लेस देन है इक्वल टू डाल दिया फॉर कंडीशन लेस देन ओनली राइट लेट्स होप दिस गोज राइट see Naveen's thing is coming because I think so its iteration is going out of bound here. What is the value of I? What is the value of I here? Is it 4?
Is 1,
I is?
okay, percentage 4.
Yes. It should go only till 3.
3.
I minus 1 देंगे इतने why it is going till 4. Now say get upper bound. Now I'll say 0. Okay, but now we have to put less than equal to. Is the last index. What is showing? Yes, quick all. Let's see. I less than 4. Okay. This should give the correct. Yes. See this. Okay. Can you see the second part? Why? Because we are displaying the I is the element number and 1 is the dimension. We can also say something like this.
in place of 1, if you are giving 0, the name will display. Correct?
Yeah, that will be first dimension. Now go to this.
0. So name comma the second dimensional value. Again, but we should not go into that deep because that is a problem. We don't know. You guys don't know what array is, how it works, and just to show how collection of objects actually iterates. So usually we use loops to iterate the entire collection. As you have seen here also, we found out the length and then try to navigate. So for loop is clear, right? There is any confusion in this? Definitely more you use, more you will get confusion and more you will learn about this. And you can ask questions that I was working with this scenario and then I got this doubt and then I'll clear that thing out. Okay. Now we are done with for loop. So we have done with for loop also. These things you know, right? You have book, go through this if you have any confusion. Now we'll come across for each. Now people who has already worked with JavaScript, they know for each loop. At least you will have a decent idea what exactly this does. Okay, for each loop is a new kind of thing that was introduced here in C#. In competitive language, for each is not there. Like if you are a student of Java, not JavaScript, Java, you will not have. Even JavaScript doesn't have for each loop.
JavaScript has.
How you write for each loop? Before that?
Before that, for loop.
For each loop, you will write for each keyword or you put $each.
TypeScript directly for it.
TypeScript it is introduced, JavaScript it is not there. JavaScript you use for each loop when you use jQuery, and the keyword is not for each, that is each, right? So basically that is a implemented version of for each loop, but in TypeScript it is introduced. Now what for each does, right? When we want to iterate the entire collection, and as I told, right, most of the cases we have that scenario where we are iterating through the entire collection. Then we use for each loop, okay? And the syntax goes, if you are a JavaScript student, you already know there is no change. It is exactly the same. I'll tell you. And to remember for each, it is very simple. Go from the right. If you go towards from the left to right, you will get confused. So first you, where it is my cursor? Okay, can you see this variable? This is in the complete right hand side. So catch hold of this. Now this variable we have to iterate. Okay, so first you have to find out what type of variable it is. So this variable name is string array. We'll find out this is a array of string. Now at least it will be little easier for you guys to understand how we write string. Okay, so this is a one-dimensional string array. So this is a collection of string array. So what is the base type is string, right? So basically when you iterate something, it is a collection. So you need to find out what is the base type of the collection. In this case, the type is string. So left hand side you will write string and a variable name. That can be anything. In this case it is written element, like how you write I, int I and like that. Here you can write ij, here you can write ABC, alpha, beta, gamma, you know. And sometimes how we say is, for example, how we give a variable name. For example, you have a collection of say cars, right? So for example, it would be car array, right? So the single element of that will be car. Got it?
String str.
So you can have that kind of thing. So it becomes little easier. Like string is a data type. I'm telling collection object type. Like it is a collection of car or human or bus, truck or anything, like, right? So whichever is the collection, you try to put a single that time name. And also you can do is sometimes if the data type is very complex, right? Especially you guys observe that. Use var. Var is used very wisely here, because sometimes it is difficult to know what is the exact, because it will be, you know, system.enumeration dot this, you know, it will be this use. You won't wish to write that single object, use var. So I'll show you the example. And now first let me explain how it thing. So you understood, right? If you have a collection object in the right hand side and the single element of that collection, what is the type? So this is a collection type of string. So you have written left hand side string and then a element. what will happen is, here you don't see any I and all, right? Every iteration, because this iterates the entire length of the collection, that's why you don't have I, because every iteration what it will do is, it will copy the single object. For example, in the iteration 1, what is the value of the element? Should be 1. So it will take the first element in this collection and put it into this. So when you are writing the program, for example, let's write this program, okay, and in our case, let's go back to our example was good only, and let's not confuse with multidimensional array. Okay. You have got this. Now this one will, this one. Okay, okay. Luckily का पता नहीं. Is the camera connected? Because camera is on or off है, कोई check करो तो.
There is something, no,
Ah, no, you are me, no.
You can see.